Okay, this is well, this is Wednesday morning once again, and it is February the 25th. I'm very, very pleased to welcome Lee Jean today because this is our very first conversation on air. And Lee Jean has a lot of insights to share when we talked with him. Well, it was really amazing to listen to what his knowledge is. And well, Lee Jean, in fact, if you haven't met him yet on LinkedIn or in person in Tokyo, is a pitch coach and a podcast host. But on top of that, he wants to make Japan the best place to build global startups. And then I really appreciate that because we all know how difficult it is to build a startup. It is even more difficult to do so here in Japan. And we need a lot of people who can support the startup founders and owners. So, Lee Jean, welcome. And thank you very much for making time to be on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Maya. I'm super excited to be here and just honored to be on your show. Yes.
Thanks a lot. Well, today we're going to talk about networking. And it's wonderful. I'm so happy about this subject because even though we think that most people, when they grow up and then when they become social beings, let's say when they go into society, it's not really that difficult to talk with others and socialize and network. I think that it's not the case quite often because we all have our own, let's say, backgrounds and, of course, biases as well. We have also a lot of barriers in our own heads, right, that keep us from being good networkers and good conversationalists as well. So today's topic is networking, right, and turning conversations into opportunities. So, Lee, before we start, actually, I would like you to tell us a little bit about how you ended up in Japan and why are you so passionate about this topic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question. So my journey actually begins in the US. I was born in the US. I've lived there until, all the way up until I was about 26 when I left the country. So that about 10 years ago, actually. And yeah, I've been traveling around the world and living in different countries since then. So I started off my career in recruitment, management, and sales, and moved to Australia actually, and did recruitment over there. I spent 9 months in Australia before moving to Vietnam, where I was there for 7 years teaching
Oh,
English. Yeah, I was there teaching English in Vietnam for 7 years. I wanted to live in a place where I didn't speak the language, didn't know anything about the culture, so that I could grow that side of me. You know what I mean? I met my wife there, who's Japanese.
right.
I met my
Okay.
Japanese wife there, and we decided to move to Japan so that it'd be easier for me visa-wise to be here, and so I could start my own business. And ever since I came to Japan, I've always wanted to just start a business and help people communicate better. Because as an English teacher, I see here in Japan, a lot of people need help, right? When it comes to English and also communication. And throughout my past 2 years of living here, I've also noticed a lot of differences when it comes to networking. I'm very active in the startup ecosystem. I go to several events here in Tokyo. I also host events monthly. So I've gotten to see how different people network throughout the ecosystem. And it's been so passionate of mine because I would consider Japan an introverted society. I don't know if you feel the same, but I actually used to be an introvert in high school.
Right.
So for me, like I didn't have many friends growing up. I was, my best friend was my mom, right? And
Mm,
when my mom passed when I was 16, I made it an effort for
okay.
me to become an extrovert. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to be more social. So actually, after university, I moved down to Florida, where I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have any family down there or anything like that. And I made it an effort to actually put myself out there, go start conversations. And yeah, here we are today. I'm a very extroverted person. I love being around people. I get energy from people, and I love making others feel empowered to do the same. So that's why I'm passionate about this. Yes.
Yeah, that's Well, that's a beautiful mission you have, and well, the story behind it,
Mhm.
because I believe that, of course, depending on circumstances, it always depends on the circumstances. But for many of us, it continues to be difficult to go out there and just start conversations, right?
Mhm.
And personally, for me, it took me a couple of years of being a tour guide and
Mhm.
having to explain everything to groups of people and stand in front of them and talk in front of them. And then after work was over, to go, and talk with them, just to maintain a small talk. So, yes, I think that, yeah, I can relate to your story to a certain extent. And
100. Yeah, your experience as a tour guide right there. A lot of people said
mm,
that oh, I'm not confident to start conversations, or I don't feel confident enough. Well, what does it take to get confidence? It takes experience. So, for example, when you're a tour guide, you're usually saying the same things over and over and over again.
right,
You're putting yourself in that situation when you're having the same types of conversations, and over time, you get better at it. And then
mhm,
now I think it's easier for you to start those conversations and be in front of people that you don't know because it was part of your daily life. For me, I had to do the same. I had to continuously go out and start conversations with people. I wasn't a born extrovert like some people are.
right,
I had to become it. And through this conversation today, I want people to realize that they can too. That anyone who feels like they're an introvert can feel more extroverted, and you can develop the skills to be more extroverted. Yeah.
right. Oh no, yeah, and that's very encouraging as well.
Mhm.
Also, I sometimes wonder, before we continue, but I sometimes wonder, do you feel the need to return to your past introvert from time to time?
Mm.
Do you feel overwhelmed from time to time as well? Like when you go out and you're very busy, you talk with a lot of people, and inevitably you get tired because that's a lot of energy that you
Mm.
use. Do you then feel the urge of returning, even just for a while, to your old introvert self?
Oh, absolutely. That actually the global gathering at Venture Cafe was last week on Thursday. There was over 1,000 people there, so that's like an event where it's like very full on networking. I was actually exhibiting with my co-founder there, and we were speaking to people nonstop. I think for about 5 hours, right? Uh,
Right,
Towards the end of the event, I was very tired. I was exhausted. My legs were actually, they felt like spaghetti, right? Like just standing up for so long, didn't actually get a chance to drink a lot of water. Uh,
mm,
and it's crazy because what people don't realize is that with networking for that long, our brains actually take 20% of our body's total energy. And when you're constantly meeting new people and having new conversations, that creativity and that critical thinking kicks in, and it really is using a lot of brain resources. So yeah, staying hydrated and then also taking time to rest, I think is very important
mm,
when you go to do those big networking conferences. The biggest one coming up is Sushi Tech in April. So
right. Yeah.
everyone, please make sure you drink water, have a big meal, and take frequent breaks in your networking. It's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for those tips, because personally, I don't really what's that, stick to them most
Mm.
of the time. It's like
Yes.
a marathon. And
Yes.
yeah, but it's important to have those breaks in between. So thank you for
One
uh,
point.
well, just telling us how important they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, I could add on to that. There's one other tip I would say, and it could be kind of tiring to constantly, start new conversations, and especially for an introvert who's trying to be more extroverted. What another tip that I often give people is recircle back to conversations you had with somebody else before. Usually at the event, if you had a conversation with somebody at the beginning, and that conversation ended, you might see them again. It's actually easier to go back and go deeper into those conversations that you had, or
Mm,
revisit something, instead of starting a new one. You don't have to do the whole introduction thing again, and it's a lot easier. The last tip I would give for that, for finding a time to rest, is go to the drink section, take some time alone, go get a breath of fresh air. Those things really do help for your mind to become more fresh when you're in a networking event.
Right. And
Mhm.
one more thing, when you talk about hydrating, I'm sure that you don't mean drinking coffee or tea all the time, right? You
Oh,
mean water.
yes, water. Water is very important. Also, at some networking events, there's alcohol as well. You got to
Oh,
be careful. You got to be careful of that. Okay.
mhm. Yeah.
Uh, sometimes people, drink a little bit to take the edge off. It can backfire, uh,
Hmm.
and, especially when you're trying to make a good first impression.
Right.
It can backfire in a couple of ways. Number one, obviously, people can smell the alcohol in your breath, so you got to
Yeah.
be careful, right? But number two is that our body doesn't lie. So we may feel composed, like as our personality, but our body is giving off subtle cues. If we're inebriated,
Mm.
it could be telling the other person like, "Oh, be careful, this person has drank a little bit too much." So we got to be careful in that sense. But I think alcohol was a tool for me when I was younger to be more extroverted. It helped me as an introvert become more extroverted. But now I don't rely on it at all. I actually stopped drinking last year. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's good, but in moderation, like all things. Yeah.
Like all things. Yeah. And personally, I would say that I used to drink because of my work, the nomikais after work and everything. But I think that we're all better off without alcohol at the end
Agreed.
of the day.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But yeah, you brought up a good point about coffee as well. Coffee, if you're an anxious person, can amplify your anxiousness. So laying off the coffee as well could be a good thing for those people who are a little neurotic or a little anxious
Mhm.
as a baseline, because it'll just amplify that, and it'll amplify the thoughts that go in your mind about not speaking to people, and then
Right.
make you feel worried in those interactions, and you don't want to do that. Yeah.
Right. And
Mhm.
so you told us that you have lived and worked in different countries and
Mhm.
currently in Japan, and you have basically you have worked in communications, right? Like you have taught people
Mhm.
English, and
Mhm.
now you teach people how to pitch.
Yep.
You teach them how to network, and all of this is communication. But
Yep.
of course, I'm sure that as you move from country to country and you move from culture to culture, you have noticed different patterns, right?
Mm.
In which people communicate or which people used to communicate. And
Mhm.
so, what differences have you noticed? And I'm curious because maybe we should talk about Japan and the West because that's most of the time what
Yes.
people notice when they are in Japan, right?
100%. So the biggest thing when I noticed here in Japan, between Japanese networking and international networking, is the Meishi exchange. That was the biggest thing for me because in the West we don't really use business cards that often. It's more digital. It's more maybe taking somebody's phone number, WhatsApp, and I think we also want to save paper usually. So that was the biggest kind of culture shock for me when I came here and I saw people just handing business cards out before
Mm,
giving their name. So the biggest thing, if you ever exchange business cards in the U.S., for example, it's after you have had a conversation already. And for me, when I approach networking, I don't want to just have another random piece of paper in my pocket. If I've taken your business card, it means that I have had built a rapport with you already. Like that person and we had a good conversation. I want to keep them in our network, right? So that was a big culture shock for me when I came here, and I was like, oh, maybe I need to get business cards because this culture it's not going to change with regards to that.
mm,
I understand now that in Japanese networking, it's actually a really big deal. It's like giving a piece of themselves to the
yeah.
other person as a sign of respect and showing their name in that sense. But for any Japanese who want to network with foreigners in other countries if they go abroad, we usually
Mhm.
start the interaction off with a handshake and get to know the person before we exchange business cards. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and Japan has a very long tradition of paper making, right?
Yes.
So yes, and they're very proud of their different kinds of paper, how the paper is made. There is a story behind each type of paper, which, as you say, I don't think that this is going to disappear
Oh,
soon.
definitely.
The business card exchange, just as you said.
Yeah.
But I also find it endearing
Mm.
because the physical proof that I have met somebody. I have come to believe that it is a physical proof that I have met somebody, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly, and actually, it helps me a lot to follow up with people. So, I have a box of business cards that I've met from people from all over, and yeah, it's really helped me because now I can go back, put them in a database, and write some notes for people based on that interaction. So it helps a lot. But yeah, it is something where anyone coming into Japan noticing that right away, definitely get some business cards. It took me about 6 months to get over that and like, oh, I'm not going to get business cards, but then now I have business cards on my desk, and yeah, and actually I've grown used to it, and that's another thing about culture shock, right?
mhm.
There's different
Yeah,
levels of culture shock and things that you need to get over and adapt to. And everywhere I've gone around the world, I've learned to adapt to where I'm at, and I think that's the most important thing for any
yeah.
international person coming to Japan is being open-minded and willing to adapt to the culture. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
I also see it because I am entirely with you on this point, being open minded and willing to adapt. Because, of course, I understand that also our brains, we live with biases because, of course, biases help us survive, right?
Mhm.
They have helped us throughout more dangerous times
Yes.
than our times. So we still have that instinct to stick to what has helped us before.
Mm.
And then in this sense, it's a little bit difficult to adapt immediately to
Mhm.
the new place. And well, that's fine too, because that's what happens. But
Yeah.
also at the end of the day, I have seen some people who have lived in their non-native places for a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades even, and they still refuse to adapt. So
Mm.
what would you say to such people?
Well, those are the same type of people that also complain all the time about the place they live in.
Right. Yes.
And imagine, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results, then that's the definition of insanity, right? So if I think that those people would just experiment with little tiny things and trying like adapting to the culture. You don't have to change your whole entire personality or your whole belief system, but when it comes to the everyday things that 99% of the people around you are doing, maybe you're the odd one out. So try something else, try out a little thing. Maybe if it's, like the Meiji exchange, that could, help the interaction a lot better. Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
indeed. But
Hmm.
in addition to the Meiji exchange, let's say, and we're talking now about Japan, but also even you mentioned that in the United States, you first build a rapport with the person, and after that you exchange business cards. In Japan, it's the other way around. The first thing you do is you exchange business cards. But in any situation, you have to open the conversation, right?
Very
So,
important.
and how do you do that? So
Oh,
that
yes.
yeah, I
So,
believe there are quite a few ways of doing that,
oh,
but
yes.
maybe you can help us with some of them.
Starting a conversation is one of the hardest things that people struggle with. It's partially because of a little bit of fear, but also because they don't know what to say, and they want to think that they have to be interesting in every single interaction. Whereas
Mhm.
that's not necessarily true. You can start a conversation just by simply saying, "Hi, my name's blank. What's your name?" A lot of people, it can be as simple as that. But what I recommend for people is to actually come into every situation with a smile. And that when you signal a smile, that shows that you're approachable and it shows you're friendly and it signals that you're not a threat. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes, we have that what's called the amygdala in our brain, which is the fight or flight reflex. And if you come into an interaction like this, right, you're signaling a threat, right? If you're frowning or if you're serious face, which a lot of people here actually have like a very expressionless face, right?
Mhm.
That
Yes.
that could be signaling that you're not friendly or you don't want to be talked to. But if you
Mhm.
start the interaction with a smile, even a little one, it helps a lot, right? Um, but in terms of conversation starters, I love to do a couple of things. The first one, if I'm at a networking event, is actually say something about the event to the person. So if I see somebody, I'll approach them and be like, "What are your thoughts on this event so far? How's,
Mhm.
and just ask about the context from which you're in." You could be in a very beautifully decorated building, or it could be like a really amazing venue. Talk about the venue. Ask a question to somebody about the venue. The speaker sessions that are going on. Hey, what were your thoughts of the speaker? Did you go to that speaker session? What were your thoughts on that one? You know,
Right.
people
Yeah.
people love to talk about their opinions and talk about themselves. So being able to bring that out of people is very important. Another thing you can mention, which I would caution on, is talking about maybe something that they're wearing. So, for example, if they have a really nice suit on, tell them. Okay. If they are wearing like a company badge, oh, you work for Toyota? Oh, that's interesting. What do you do over there? Or you could say, like, if they have a different color wristband to you, oh, what color does that mean? So, pointing something out that is obvious that can start the conversation is a good way. The only thing I caution for is, for example, men to females talking about how they look. I don't think that's appropriate. I would definitely say something more so maybe if it's company related or something like that, or maybe if they're very happy or like, oh, you look fun. Like, what's your name? You have a great smile, right? What's your name? And then start the conversation like that. Um, yeah, I think starting the conversation can be done in so many different ways, but finding that common ground or finding something that can be a unique way of starting it is good. Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
And as you said, it's really important to have a smile on your face. I
Yeah.
can tell you, yes, a story. Last night I went to, there was a gathering, and then I went to a restaurant, and I was still fighting. I mean, I'm still fighting the cold, but yesterday it was a little bit worse than that now, and I was not feeling very comfortable. My face was kind of, dark.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. When I entered the restaurant, and there was a person who welcomed me there, but the moment he saw my face, his attitude changed, and he just took me to the seat and left immediately without saying anything. And I thought, oh, obviously I scared him away.
That's what it was. Yes. Yeah, and
Eh,
sometimes it's not our fault, right? Your body doesn't lie. So one of the things that people don't realize is our body language signals so much more of our true feeling than anything else. So
right.
there's a breakdown in terms of communication. 55% of the meaning of what we say is in our body language.
Hmm.
38% is our tone of voice, and then
Hmm.
only 7% is the words that we say,
Right.
which
Oh,
is
I
crazy.
appreciate that statistic because I was looking for it only recently.
Oh yes,
And right, yes. So
yeah.
it's important to remember.
Yeah.
And yes, once again, it's of course the facial expression, the tone of voice, body language, as you say. We need to be aware of that. I'm not saying we have to be careful, but we need to be aware of it.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So many people are unaware of it. One common body language thing that I see here in Japan is this, crossing the arms.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I sometimes I see people walking down the street like this, like they're walking
Oh,
down,
okay.
which
All
is
right.
like which is very unnatural, first of all. But second of all, like when you cross your arms, you're signaling closed offness and you're
Mm-hmm.
signaling defensiveness. What I recommend for people when you're at a networking event and you want to be approached or you want to be considered friendly is to have more open body language. Now, you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to walk around with your arms out extended like
Right. That's also strange, but
it is strange. Yeah, like, oh, come in for a hug. No, you don't have to do that, right?
right.
But showing that your hands are out of your pockets, that they're visible, and actually one subtle trick is to show your palms at some point. So
Mm.
if you're approaching, you can say, "Hey, how are you?" Showing your palms. Remember the amygdala that I told you about. When you show your palms, it signals safety.
Right.
Imagine you're walking down the street and there's two guys. One guy has his hands in his pockets and he's walking down,
Mm.
and the other guy is just there. He's got his palms out, walking to the side. 9 out of 10 times, you're going to be more afraid of the guy with his hands in his pockets because you can't see what he has. Maybe he has a knife. Maybe he has a gun. You have no idea. Okay.
Right. Right.
So when we see somebody's palms, it makes us feel more safe. And that's the same at a networking event. If
Mm.
you can take your hands out of your pockets, it shows more confidence and it shows safety. So yeah, open body language, chin up, good posture. This all helps when you want to be approached or when you're approaching somebody.
Right. Yeah. And then from there, yes, you start the conversation. But of course, earlier this morning, you said that you can circle back to other, well, to conversations you already had. But at the same time, you still have to go through the whole conversation.
Oh
So,
yes.
and what are your tips for that? Because you start with a compliment, right? Or you start with an observation. You
Mhm,
start with something by saying something positive.
mhm,
So it could be about the person, about the environment, and a
mhm.
third person, and so on. But then, if the conversation stalls, what do you do?
Oh, it's so interesting. You know, so for me, one thing that people don't realize is the importance of small talk. But small talk, a lot of people don't know how to get out of that. So sometimes they'll have small talk conversations that last 30 minutes, but they have no idea how to transition into big talk or business talk, right? But let's start by addressing the three um, conversation like questions that you'll always get. What's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Okay.
Mhm.
Those are the three questions that everybody asks almost at every single networking event, especially in international environments.
Right.
With my least favorite question being, what do you do? Okay.
Mhm.
But before I address that, I want to address the other ones. So if you say, for example, what's your name? And you answer just by saying, oh, my name is, let's say, uh, Tanaka Taro. Okay. If
Yeah.
you, you know what I mean? If you say that to somebody who is not from your culture, they might not understand like how to pronounce your name, or maybe they didn't get your name properly. So if you have a unique name, it's very important to speak slowly, maybe
Mhm.
sometimes use a nickname, or maybe even spell out their name if you spell out your name if you need to. What a better question though than what's your name is, how do you like to be called? Or
Mhm.
that's it's a
Yeah.
different breaking the script type of question, because that then has that more familiarity. So, for example, if my name's Jonathan, okay, but somebody asks me, "How do you like to be called?" I could say John instead of Jonathan,
Right.
which might be difficult for somebody from a different culture to say. So
Mhm.
that opens up that opportunity for you to say your nickname in a more familiar way.
Yeah.
Uh, the second question is, where are you from? Okay, a common question that people get all the time. Now, the worst thing that you can do is just say, "Oh, I'm from Boston. What about you?" Right? You
Yeah.
just say,
Yeah.
yeah, if you just say that, then that person is like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm from blah blah blah." Right? Um, what you should do is give somebody a little bit of conversational bait. And how can you do?
Mhm.
You can say something that's a nice fact about your city, or you can say where it's near. If are from a small town, you can say where it's near. It's about 35 miles from whatever, right? From bigger city, right? Giving them something to ask deeper questions about. So, for example, if nobody knew in Japan where Boston was, which is would be crazy, but if they didn't know where it was,
Right. Yeah.
I'm from Boston. It's a really famous city for universities. It's great. It has great seafood, and also we're one of the best sports team in the U.S. Sports cities in the USA. What about
Right.
you? Where are you from? You know, uh, I just told them about like the universities, the sports cities, and something else. Right?
Mm.
Then they can ask me questions about those things.
Right.
So
Mm.
we got to remember that conversations are two-way streets. And if you're not giving them conversational bait and more things to ask you questions on, that's when
Mm.
the conversation dies down. We'll get into, obviously asking questions afterwards, but I want to address the next question, which is, what do you do? This is my least favorite question. Uh,
Mm.
the reason why, but it's the most asked. The reason why is because it can come off as judgmental to people. If you ask, what do you
Mm.
do? For example, there have been many times where I've been at networking events, and somebody has asked me, what do you do? and I say, "Oh, I'm a recruiter," or I'm a an English teacher, and they become disinterested.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to talk to me anymore. They're like, "Oh, okay, well, it's nice to meet you. I'm going to go somewhere else," you know? And I hate that because for me, like, we're all people. We all have a story. We also all have a network,
Yeah.
and we can all help each other in some ways. It doesn't have to be during, in that interaction alone. It could be later on in life. But if you just judge somebody for what they do, then that's an unfortunate thing about that person or yourself if you're doing it. So what I like to ask instead is, what exciting projects are you working on at the moment? Or how do you spend most of your time?
Mm-hmm.
If you ask, how do you spend most of your time? This opens up the opportunity for the person to talk about something they're actually interested in. Because
Right.
what if you're working in a career that you don't like? What if you probably don't want to talk about it? Or maybe you're unemployed at the moment looking for a job. Or what if are, yeah, you're like, you hate your job. You don't want to talk about it. Maybe you like more about hiking, or you like spending time with your family more. There were
Mm-hmm.
a couple times where I met housewives, for example, and they said, "Oh, I'm not working. I'm a housewife." Like, that's okay too. It's okay to
Yeah,
be a housewife. It's like, just because you're unemployed, but you're taking care of your kids, like, that's amazing. You
it
know,
is. Yes, and it's work.
it
Many
is.
people do not recognize it as work, but it's 24/7 work with a
Exactly.
lot of responsibilities there.
100%. And if you're a housewife and working at the same time, that's incredible, right?
Yeah.
It- I think being able to find things that give the other person a reason to talk about will also enhance your conversations. And for me, we all have to remember, everyone's a stranger that we're talking to. If you meet somebody new, they're a stranger until they're not. So if you can make them feel like less of a stranger, then that's key,
Mhm.
because you'll have a better interaction. So for me, what I like to do is I like to relate to them whenever I can.
Right. Yeah.
So how do I do that? Um, Sometimes I'll meet people and they say, "Oh, I'm either Vietnamese or I've been to Vietnam, or I used to work there." I'm like, "Oh my God, me too. I used to live there for 7 years." You see, like, immediately when they say something that has been part of my history,
Mhm.
I immediately relate to it. Or let's say it doesn't have anything to do with my history. For example, my co-founder, she's from Hokkaido, right? And she
Yeah.
said, "Oh, I'm from Hokkaido." I'm like, "Oh, isn't that where the space like agency is from?" She said,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, that's interesting." So when you show interest in the other person, or you can relate your knowledge to their experience, you're going to become more interesting, and you'll have more things to talk about in the interaction, I think. Um, but yeah, those are just some tips I have for those three questions that
No,
are,
yeah.
yeah.
It's important. And I want to read one comment from Ilya Lakin here. And he says, I totally agree about what do you do. When I try to explain, it always comes out underwhelming. Same
Mhm.
with what did you do over holidays? When
Yeah.
you try to sum it up, it usually becomes nothing really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that's the thing where, one of the things that you can also do, instead of saying, "What do you do?" We got into asking different questions, but also, what do you do when you respond to those questions, right? So
Mm-hmm.
inevitably, people are going to ask you that. What do you say in return? So what I like to do instead of saying my position is saying the value that I provide. It's kind of like a little mini elevator pitch, and it also gives them like a chance to create a little bit of mystery. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then, like, that'll give them bait to ask more questions. Oh, that's interesting. How do you do that? So, for example, for me, if somebody asks me, "What do you do?" I just tell them, I'm like, "I help Japanese founders get the skills they need to go global." Oh, that's interesting. How do you do that? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do that through various events. I do that through various, courses and consulting practices that I do. At no point did I say that I'm a founder or an entrepreneur or something like that, or an English teacher. I said the value that I provide and how I do it. Okay.
Right.
So, for example, if you're in a career that many other people might not know anything about, or is kind of maybe boring, right? Like, oh, I'm an accountant, or I'm, a scientist or something like that. Talk about the value you provide. For an accountant, that could be, I help companies save millions of dollars every single year on their taxes. That's
Mm,
very different from
it
saying,
is compelling.
right? Right? That's very different from saying I'm an accountant, you know?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think unlocking, those that little powerful statements to answer what do you do with, I think is key. And there's a very simple framework I want to share with everybody. It's I help X. X is
Hmm.
basically who. Achieve Y. Y is the what result. Okay.
Hmm.
By doing Z, which is the
Right.
how you do it. Okay.
Hmm.
I help X achieve Y by doing Z. If you can use that simple framework and plug in those X, Y, Z's, I think you'll be better suited to answer what do you do in a more
Right.
effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important, as you say, it's, well, not only in conversations, right, while networking, but when you try to talk with investors as well.
Yes. Very important. Yes. We should.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should definitely have our own like elevator pitches for each type of person we're speaking to as well. So, for example, you might say, "What do you do?" Like how you answer "What do you do?" will change depending on who you speak to. So, if I'm an accountant and I'm speaking to another accountant, I can easily say, "Oh, I'm an accountant, but I do it for corporations." It's easier. They get it. They're in the same level. But if I'm
Right.
talking to a potential customer, they want to hear the value I provide. They don't want to hear I'm an accountant necessarily. So, yeah, I think whenever we can break the script as well, it makes the conversation more interesting. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yes. Thank you for all those tips. It's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Let me stop here with, the praises because otherwise I can continue with them until we finish
Ah,
the podcast. So,
okay. It's okay.
right. But then, okay. So now we're walking through the process, or you're walking us through the process of networking. And then we have met the person, we have talked with them. And how do you move into, is this the segue to telling them what your business is and basically the value of your business, or is this just the segue to them continuing the conversation or going into business talk? I don't know how to explain this better, actually,
Mm. Like,
because
like,
at the end of the day we want our networking to also lead to some business contacts, right, relationships, projects, and so on. How do
Mhm.
you do that?
Yeah. So that's a really great question. It's basically goes back to how do you go from small talk to business talk or small talk to
Hmm.
big talk, right?
Hmm.
I mean, the best way I could show this really is through a role play, but I think I don't, I'm conscious of time. But I think if you're able to familiarize yourself with them and then somehow take over the conversation to briefly speak about what you do. I did this. I actually did a role play on my YouTube channel the other night with my
Oh,
co-founder about how
great.
we
Yeah.
get from small talk to big talk. But yeah, I mean, another way you can do it is like when the conversation dies down or the small talk kind of fades, that could be when you started. Well, my name, I also wanted to talk to you about my company and I do this and that, right? What do you do? Being It's very important to not forget to always ask the other person to like explain what they do as well. Because if you
Mhm.
just go into a 5 minute like monologue about what you do, you're not going to be very you're not going to be very interesting, and they're not going to care as much. I think having every good conversation should be like a tennis match, where
Mhm.
back and forth, back and forth, back and forth,
Right. Yeah.
asking follow-up questions, showing interest. And that has a lot to do with active listening as well. So, for example, let's say, Maya, you're talking about something like your hobbies or interests, and maybe you bring up something that is slightly related to what I do or loosely related to what I do. I
Mhm.
was like, oh, that's very interesting. Actually, what I do at my company is help people do this, and that. Is that something that, you've been looking for or interested in, or what's your experience been with that so far? So
Mhm.
I acknowledge what you said. I complimented and said what I did, and then asked a question about it back to you. so you can
Right.
reflect on it. That could be one tactic to do that. There's also a framework
Mhm.
called ACA, which is kind of what I just said, which is acknowledge, compliment, ask.
Mhm. Right.
Compliment, ask. So that's really helpful when you're stuck and don't know how to move on, and it can help you transition into any other topic. So let's say you talk about something that's maybe something I don't want to talk about, for example, like maybe a political view, and that could be a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
To in a
Mhm.
conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting opinion. Oh, like oh is acknowledging. That's an interesting opinion. Compliment. What are your thoughts on, let's say, this situation here in Japan? If you're talking about the U.S., and then we do something here in Japan, switching it to something different
Right. Yeah.
could be helpful. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. im- Well, it's helpful as well.
It
And
is.
to everybody watching, yes, just please feel free to ask questions as well,
Please.
and comment as well.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. And then, once we have done that, usually after a networking event in Japan, when I go home, the next day, then I wake up and open my business card case,
Mhm.
and I take out all the business cards and I go through them, and then I get on my computer and start basically connecting with people
Mhm.
online,
Mhm.
sending a thank you email or a brief message if they are on a social media I am on. So
Right.
is this a good way to go about it, or do you think that maybe we can do much better
Oh
with
yes.
something
Yes.
else?
I think it's a good thing. A lot. Well, there's a saying: the fortune is in the follow up. Okay. So most people are busy with their lives. Once they go to a network event, they just don't follow up. And I think that, by simply following up in any way possible, you're increasing your chances of adding that person into your network and opening up opportunities for the future. So what you're doing is good. A lot of people don't do that. They don't take that extra step. Okay. I've seen a lot of creative ways of doing this. For example, one person in my network, what they do is they actually take a selfie with that person and send it to them right away so that
Right.
that
Yeah.
person remembers them and they remember them at that event.
Hmm.
That's one way. Another way is to schedule a time to meet during that event or the day after. So if you really enjoyed the conversation and for whatever reason your conversation got cut short, you're able to exchange contact information, take a few minutes and message that person right away, and be like, "Hey, I really enjoyed our conversation. I know we kind of got cut up a bit there. Could we set up a time to meet online about this conversation and continue our conversation?" Like acknowledging that you had a really good interaction and showing that interest to set it up again, I think will, really show that person that you're interested in meeting with them. Now,
Right.
it's a little different if you're doing it to a client, I think. With a client, like a potential sales lead or something, if you came off as salesy in the conversation, they're probably not going to want to meet with you again. And so that's why it's so important to remember, Maya, that when we're in these conversations, it's very important to genuinely connect with people and
Hmm.
not sell them on the first day. I think a lot of times I've been to networking events where people are just trying to sell me stuff right away, and that doesn't help. I'm not interested. If there's one, you know what I mean? There's one time like this, I was at a networking event. It's actually last year, the global gathering. And I was having a conversation with somebody else. And this Japanese lady comes up to me and the three of us just stands there and is like listening in. Oh, I was like, oh, okay. And then I asked her, what do you think? And she just hands me her business card and then starts immediately telling me what she does without reflecting on what she was listening to at that time. Of course, I'm not going to be interested in connecting with that
Right.
person later
Hmm.
because clearly she wasn't listening. She showed me she wasn't listening, had no social skills with regards to the interaction. She kind of
Hmm.
interrupted the conversation. And then, yeah, like I don't think, maybe her English or whatever wasn't up to the speed that, she can handle that type of interaction. So, like showing interest in the other person is key in to building that rapport and relationship for a long-term interaction. The one last thing I'll say about this is weak ties. Do you know what a weak tie is?
I don't know.
Okay. So a weak tie is somebody that you loosely know. Okay.
Okay.
They don't know you too well. You may have had one interaction with them, like a good first interaction, and then that person remembers you for that. Weak ties have so much power, Maya. I cannot tell you
Really?
so much power. In fact, you are less likely to be referred to a job, a position, or a client by somebody you know really well than a weak tie.
Oh,
Honestly,
yeah, that's something I didn't know. I was not aware at all,
yeah.
and would have never thought about.
The reason why is because your close ties know you too well. They
Mm,
know too much about you to refer you to somebody else. Whereas a weak tie doesn't know everything about you. They
oh,
know they know what you gave them maybe in that first interaction, you
mm,
know? So for example, if I go to a networking event, maybe it's a bunch of tech people, for example, and I'm the only business guy there,
yeah,
and I'm the only one doing what I do. If I have good first impressions with every single person there, they're going to know me as the only business guy in the room.
right.
So when it comes up, they
They
have an
will.
opportunity to remember me over anyone else in their network because
Right.
I'm in tech, you know? So something similar. I think that those people will refer you more for opportunities if you genuinely connect with them, have a
Mm-hmm.
good interaction, and leave a good first impression.
Right.
Then strong ties a lot of times.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing that because honestly, I would have never thought about it.
Hmm.
And in the same way, so I see the meaning of basically going to networking events and, well, talking with people, they're connecting with them, even though they belong to other industries,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So,
Well, Maya, remember this. Everyone has a network. Every
mhm,
single person has a network. So, for example, you might get into a conversation with somebody who's completely unrelated
right.
to, like your industry or your area of expertise. But that person might know 5 or 10 other people that
Mm-hmm.
are in in your area of expertise, in your industry. If you give them a good first impression, they're going to refer you to them. That,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I met Maya. She's doing these things with cultural exchange with, Japanese and foreign clients. You should talk to her.
Right.
But you have to make that good first impression with that person who's right in front of you first.
Yeah.
You have to do that. It's called serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
And creating more good luck for yourself by being a genuine, authentic person who, with every single person that is in front of you. Um, yeah, I think that has helped me a lot in my career as well. A lot of opportunities that I've had have been through word of mouth referrals, through people that are unrelated to my industry. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Important insight again.
Mhm.
And I think that we also want to talk about LinkedIn
Oh, it's so important. Yes.
because LinkedIn is growing. It continues to grow everywhere and in Japan as well.
Uh,
Uh, and even though we still think that social media have been around for such a long time that most everybody knows how to network there,
mhm.
it's not really the case.
Mhm.
So,
That's right.
what can you tell us about networking on LinkedIn and what's the best approach to it? Is it really worth it to start with too?
Let me start by saying LinkedIn is the most powerful networking tool that you have out there. It's the
Oh,
most powerful one. There's a reason why over 1 billion people use it around the world. I think there's what 330 million decision makers are on LinkedIn. So it's
mhm,
crazy how useful it is. There's a lot of myths in Japan about LinkedIn with regards to it being a bad tool or a kind of taboo tool to use. Like, for example, one of the myths that I've heard is that LinkedIn is only for bragging. Even sometimes people in the US kind of like get cringe over LinkedIn because they continuously see these people who are boasting about whatever it is, or they have some really strange like picture that they use to
mhm,
sort of concept, and that is there. But compare that to Facebook. Compare that to X. I mean, there's a lot
Right.
of bad stuff on there too, and really cringeworthy stuff as well. I think because it's in a professional context, they don't expect it. But yeah. But anyways, there's a few things I want people to realize with this. Number one, you can unfollow those profiles. If people are
Mm-hmm.
constantly
Yeah.
like, you can unfollow them just like any other social media platform. Number two, you don't have to do that. You can post whatever you'd like on there. So what's so powerful about LinkedIn is you can do things like this. You can have a podcast, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can post news articles about things that are relevant to your industry so that you can become a thought leader. You can create articles. Like actually write articles yourself. I've written a few articles, shared them online. You can check my profile about it as well. You can post recaps of events. You can post so much like valuable content on there that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be cringeworthy. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you have to. And to be fair, there's a lot of people who are creating really valuable content. One of the things
Yeah.
about social media that people don't realize is that only less than 1% of LinkedIn users create content. Less than
Mm.
1%. So if you want
Yeah.
to beat the 1% of LinkedIn users, start creating more content on there by posting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a
Well,
powerful.
that's great. But also, I think that sometimes we get those direct pitches, like sales pitches there in the direct message
Mm,
uh,
yeah,
section.
that's
So,
right.
and that's really not the way to go about it.
No,
So, would you say that everything you told us about networking in person is the same? Basically, the process is similar, in on social media.
it's actually easier. It's
It's
easier.
easier. Okay.
The reason why it's easier is because you can see on their profile where they've worked, what their
Hmm.
interests are, what their skills are, who they're connected with, and ask more questions. It's easier to start a conversation because you don't have that fear necessarily of approaching somebody in person, being rejected in person, or whatever anxiety that we have about meeting people in person. Online, it's a lot easier to start conversations because you have more information to work with. You can ask more
Hmm.
questions about their profile and relevant experience and connect. You know, when you have written communication, you can have more time to think about it as well. So I actually think it's a lot easier. And what people don't realize is that another powerful part about LinkedIn compared to Facebook and others is that you can search up people by industry, by location, by all these other ways, what company they work for. Um, if you're serious about business and you're an entrepreneur, you have to use LinkedIn. There's no way you can't use LinkedIn
Right.
because if you're looking for leads, it's the best lead tool. If you're looking to connect with decision makers, it's the best one because you can actually search by their position and by their company. Um, but with regards to what you're saying, also connections. So how the connections work, there's first, second, and third degree connections on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
First degree connections is like we're directly connected. Like you sent me a connection request and you're connected, right? Second degree is anyone who you're connected with. Like if I search for a person and I see their name and they're a second degree connection, that means that you or somebody I know are connected with them.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So that like what happens is when I post, because you're connected with me, they'll also see my post,
Yeah.
which is really powerful and interesting. Third degree is like you have no connection with them at all. Okay. But I think people really need to leverage this because if you want to be a thought leader or market your stuff or get your name out there and build your personal brand, LinkedIn's the only way to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It's a great tool indeed, and a window to the world, the broader world as well.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I hope more people realize it. And then we've got a couple of
Oh, yes.
comments and questions. So first, because we're talking about LinkedIn, I'll read this from Shoko Tsuge-san. She says 300 million decision makers on LinkedIn. That's a great number. Japanese control of compliance on social media is focusing too much on strict perspectives.
Mhm.
Speaking and presenting properly without too much control is something I would like to expect in Japan. Yes, because if you have worked for a Japanese company, you know that you are not expected to talk about your company on social media.
Uh,
So, yes, and some companies do have that in their contracts, the agreements, the work agreements.
mhm.
Um, and if you post on social media, that content should be curated.
Yes.
So yes, and it should be curated by well, the relevant department in the company,
Mm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Absolutely. So you can, it's all like LinkedIn is just a tool. It's up to you to how you use it. For
Mhm.
example, if you work for a big corporate, let's say like, I don't know, Panasonic or something, right? The electronics company. You don't
Yeah,
have, you can work, you can be an employee who works for Panasonic, who has a LinkedIn profile, and you're building your personal brand by sharing relevant information in the electronics industry. It doesn't have to
right.
be Panasonic.
About the company, yes,
Yeah, it doesn't
indeed.
have to be at all.
Yeah.
Because remember, guys, it's very important to remember that your personal brand is going to stick with you no matter what company you work for, no matter what.
Mhm.
If you are serious about networking, you want people to have a good first impression of you, and having a good online presence is key in this digital age. I think a lot of people spend more time online than they do at networking events. So, what do you want your online presence to be like? What do you want the first impression of your online self to be? Is very key. And one of the ways to do that is to post relevant content. Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. And then before we go to the question of okay, Tsuge-san, because we're talking about LinkedIn now, we've got Ilya. Once
Mhm.
again, he says, indeed, lots of cringy content on LinkedIn, but that's a consequence of the freedoms of speech. The ability to say anything and talk to anyone is really worth putting up with some trashy content.
Mhm.
Other platforms are not like that. Try posting a collaborative comment on YouTube or Reddit, it will probably be banned because it has a link in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yes, very
Yeah,
much so. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely though. Like freedom of speech is important, I think. But we also have the freedom to unfollow people. We also have the freedom to block people. We also
Yeah.
have the freedom to do all those things. And that's the beauty of social media. And, imagine going to a networking event in person and then speaking to somebody who has, completely far out their views than compared to you. How to navigate exiting that conversation tactfully is key, right?
Yes,
Whereas
indeed.
if you just see something online, you don't have to really like pay attention to it if you don't want to. I think a lot of people put too much, importance on things they see online sometimes and take things at face value. But yeah, I think that for me, it's been extremely powerful tool for expanding my network here in Japan. Before, I used it as a recruiter in Australia and the US, but then in Vietnam, I didn't use it at all. I didn't use LinkedIn at all for 7 years. It was now gone. But now I'm very active on it and I use it to expand my network because I meet so many people in person. I want them to be connected with me and stay connected. All those weak ties, right? That I'm telling you
Right.
about.
Yes.
So many people have been seeing what I've been doing in the community and have been reaching out to me for opportunities to collaborate and do business deals with
Mm,
because I am telling them about what I'm doing. So that's key. Yeah.
right. Yes. And let's see the question from Tsuge-san. She says, I have a situation.
Mhm.
Okay, of business cards that I have missing to have with me. So she forgot the business cards when
Mhm.
she went to a networking event, and but also unfortunately there are some situations that we are sometimes hesitant to exchange cards.
Mhm.
How do you read and reconcile with this? If
Mhm.
you don't want to exchange business cards, how do you how do you do that? And well, do you follow up then, or yes?
Okay. All right. There's a few ways to deal with this. If there's
Mhm.
a situation where you don't have your business cards, I would, connect with them on LinkedIn. Or if you really do want to connect with them, write down your email address on a piece of paper, or you can write it in their phone for them, or give them your number. That's if you want to connect with them. Now, there are situations, especially for females, right, where maybe you don't want to connect with this person. Maybe they give you the wrong vibe, or they've been too aggressive, or something like that. You know, it's a little tougher to navigate. If they give you their business card, you know, a little white lie here and there doesn't help. It doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? You can say, "Oh, I actually don't have my business cards on me, but I'll take yours, and then I'll follow up with you later." Uh, Another way is like about just being upfront. Be like, "Look, I had a nice conversation today, but I honestly don't think that, you know, we would match with regards to collaborations or work this situation. I do wish you the best with your networking. Have a great day." You know, and just being cordial and
Yeah.
polite in that situation is key. But being also true to your own values, because it's a kind of our nature to be nice to people that we don't know, like and kind of like forgiving of people's like you know, misbehavior sometimes, when
Yeah.
in reality we shouldn't. We should tell them up front, like, "Hey, you know, it was a nice conversation, however, I don't think that we would match with regards to this collaboration, but I do wish you all the best." Yeah, you know, and just something, the truth shall set you free, I think.
Mm,
And that's
yeah.
been for me my whole life. So yeah.
Yeah, I think once again, because you mentioned it a couple of times, we're free to follow up or not to follow up, right?
Mhm.
And it is both true both about in-person networking and social media networking.
Yes.
So yes, but the
Mhm.
thing is once again to be cordial, and
Yes.
so
Always
yeah,
professional, right? Because
professional.
even if you didn't agree with them, or they were, you know, kind of aggressive, like, that's on them. You have to stay calm, collected, cordial, respectful, because you're making that first impression. Yes.
Yes, yeah. All right. And then Ilya, because we're talking about business cards again, Ilya wrote business card before saying your name is probably a strategy. What if the other person doesn't hear and say my name correctly, especially if they are a foreigner? Yeah, I think that business cards help in this regard.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
yes, if
You
somebody can read your name, it makes it easier for them.
Yes, yes, it is important, you know, but sometimes I'll get somebody's business card and their name, and then it's like, huh, it's very long. So it's also still good to follow up with maybe a nickname, or saying it
Mm,
slower, or spelling it out, or sounding out the name. Yeah, so it's still good to have that as well. Mhm.
Yeah, and then Andrew is saying, I'm looking forward to my opportunity to adapt in Japan. Andrew, I do hope that you come to Japan sooner than later.
Yes.
Please, yes, please continue following your dream. And also to everybody who watched us, thank you very much. We are already 3 minutes past 9 o'clock, the time when we say goodbye and wish happy Wednesday to everybody. But I want to say to you, Lee, thank you so very much for making time for this podcast. And I would love to continue this conversation in another session at a time convenient for you, of course, because it is
Mhm.
important to work time wise as well. So
Absolutely.
let's continue with these conversations. And also,
Mhm.
to everybody, if you have any questions or if you haven't connected with Lee, please connect with him and talk with him so that, yes, you can. Well, you can establish that connection. Well,
Absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely. I will. I'll just post if I can in the chat, or can I do that? Oh no.
yes,
Maybe my LinkedIn or my LinkedIn
yes.
profile. I can.
Also, yes, Lee, could you please share your YouTube channels?
Ah,
Because,
yes.
yes,
Yes.
I think that it will be helpful for everybody who wants to learn more from you.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Absolutely. Let me
yes,
go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to post my LinkedIn here, and
please.
then can I? Will it? Oh no. It said it failed to post. Oh no! But I'll share with you, Maya, and then I'll share all my links with you, and then you can share with them.
Yes.
That
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Yes,
So that
great.
everyone has it. I have my Omni English channel has a lot of networking tips on there, so you guys can take a look at that and watch some of the videos. And then, yeah, I've done networking workshops in the past, so follow my LinkedIn, and if I do one again in the future, you guys definitely come out to those. I think you'll enjoy it. It'll be a lot of fun. We do a lot of hands-on activities, literally hands-on activities like handshaking and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to one of those as well. It will be interesting to attend them, if you don't mind, of course.
Of course. Of course. Come on out. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. All right, once again, happy Wednesday to everybody, and I hope that this week continues to be good for you. Well, stay with us. We'll be here once again next week. And if you have questions, if you want to hear somebody on the podcast, let me know as well, because if that is the case, I can reach out to them and invite them to be a guest speaker as well. That's all for the moment. Have a great day, and we'll see you again. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Yes.